and we are live on Facebook. And good evening, everybody, or good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And you're very welcome to episode 9 of Facing Fears. I can't believe I've 9 done already. It's been a hoot. So thank you to anybody who's joining us. And I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Caroline McCarthy. And I know Caroline through the network and also through her shop, Lanidor in Galway. And I got specially dressed up and everything in one of your Lanidor dresses. So I'm a bit rare this evening. So thank you for joining me. Delighted to have you on.
Delighted to be on your show, Tracy. I always wanted to be on a show, and here I am finally.
Well, I had to create a show to be on a show, but guess what? It works. So, So this show is all about fear and kicking fear in the ass, basically. And what I'm loving is with the guests that I'm interviewing is seeing how their life has changed and improved when they have recognized that a lot of their fears were just complete BS. So I guess, Caroline, if you could start maybe by sharing with us how fear shows up or how it has shown up for you in your life to date.
Well, I suppose, Tracy, when you asked me if I wanted to be on this show, I had been thinking a bit about it. And I suppose the most recent fear, point in my life was when I opened my shop 3 years ago. But I do feel that I was primed somewhat for that and for facing that fear, because I had faced many fearful situations throughout my life. And the one that I suppose came back to me most was one that happened when I was 20. And I was working, it's a positive story now, it's not a negative story. I was working my first job in Galway City, and I was making £65 a week. I was paid every Thursday, and by Tuesday of every week, I had no money left. So I did this for a year, and I questioned many times throughout the time, was this all there was to life? Is this what it's going to be? And I wasn't too happy that would be the case. So I decided to up sticks and leave Ireland, and I spent many sleepless nights and waking up in cold sweats thinking about doing that. It was a huge move. I'd never even left the country before, so it was a huge step. But I did know that if I wanted to change things for myself and give myself more opportunities, I felt I needed to leave Ireland. So I made the decision and packed my bags, hopped on a bus, hopped on a plane, and arrived in London. So that was a real facing of my
and you
fears
did it by
for me.
yourself. You didn't go with anybody.
No, I did it by myself. Yeah, and it was a completely different lifestyle, completely different culture. It was so brand new to me, every single element of it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I felt very empowered, I think, by having faced the fear of leaving home and the fear of experiencing something new.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, following on from that, a year later, I decided to move to New York. Now that was
Okay.
a big jump, but I suppose I had that little bit more experience by then, and I was, I think I was that little bit more able to deal with that fearful
When
part.
the fears that you were having at that time, or the thinking that you were doing around that, what were you telling yourself?
Oh, I suppose a lot of it was fear of not succeeding at what I was doing, of going there and having it not work out and having
Hmm.
to return home with my tail between my legs. A fear of all of that, a fear of not getting a job, a fear of, fitting in with the culture and, enjoying myself as well. So all those types of fears.
And when the reality of that, so then you moved there and did you kind of start to see that a lot of them you had made them up in your head?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They were completely unfounded.
Yeah.
I when I looked back and look back now, I was well able to do it. There was, I had the determination to do it. I know the fear was there, but I just didn't allow the fear to hold me back. And I think
Yeah.
I would be a different person now if I hadn't made those, if I hadn't looked that fear in the face and looked it in the eye and made those decisions to do something
And
different.
as you move through your life, does it show up differently? Like, do you notice yourself? Do you find yourself doing things and that you don't question them? And then when you look back, you go, oh yeah, I was actually doing that because I was a bit afraid. So have you noticed any change in how fear shows up?
I think the fear still does show up at certain times. I think that, any new phase in your life and any new venture or new adventure, there will always be a certain amount of fear. And
Mm.
of course, yeah, I do realize, always subsequently that it was unfounded and that, I needn't have been fearful. But I think it's a normal human instinct as well to feel that
Mm.
kind of fear. And I've used that. I faced many fearful situations since then, but I use it to my advantage in that I use it as a challenge. I use it as a learning experience, and I suppose those first two big moves in my life in my 20s, that just made me even more determined not to allow fear to hold me back.
Yeah.
I it would have been I would have it would have been a big disservice to myself if I had allowed that to happen. And that was it. I think I grew to enjoy the challenges, and whilst I was still fearful and frightened at times of different things, I still grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and I just faced it head on and decided I will
Do
not let
you
this beat me.
see, like, would you see, a lot of people who kind of reach a point in their life where they're maybe very dissatisfied, where they are lacking fulfillment, bored, depressed, even, that the main thing that got in their way was that they didn't take that leap, that they didn't challenge themselves. And because of that, because they held themselves back early on in life, it just becomes everything gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, is that something that you'd experience?
Oh, absolutely, Tracy. I worked as an executive assistant for the biggest part of my career, and I encountered many, many people in jobs that they were extremely unhappy in, and I could tell that they were very talented people, that they had an awful lot to offer, but the fear just held them back. They expressed many times to me that they would love to change, they would love to move, they would love to try something different, but whilst they didn't actually say it was fear, I could tell it was fear of the unknown, a fear of something new that did hold them back. And, I still have contact with some of those people, and 25 years plus later, they are still in the same jobs, doing the same thing, feeling the same dissatisfaction, and just, it does get harder as time
Mm.
goes on, and people get embedded. That embedded feeling of fear is much, much harder to, I think, to rationalize, to challenge, or
Yeah,
to.
I think that often actually a lot of people, they take it too seriously. I think that's really, I know myself, I took myself way too seriously. I took my fears and my lack of my doubts, I just took them way too seriously. And when I stopped, when I actually just said, that's not true, that's actually not true, it's not factually correct, it is just a thought. And if you leave it alone and don't analyze the shit out of it and just let it pass, another thought will come along very soon. So, and actually what I love is that you have, in the face of everything that's going on in the moment, and obviously your shop is closed down, you have been really creative in that. And somebody has just asked a question there. Hi, Marie, and thanks for watching, about tips for starting classes via Zoom. You've broken out of your comfort zone and started doing virtual shopping online. So, like, how
Yeah,
did that
yeah.
idea pop into your head?
Well, we closed the shop on the 16th of March, like many other businesses in town, and it was very daunting. It was a very sad day. It was a day that I or anybody, nobody could have envisaged this ever happening. But it happened, and I had to get on with things. And the thought of not doing anything for the unforeseeable future was not really an option for me. So I started looking at other ways of engaging with my customers, of generating some business, of keeping Lanidor present in people's minds. So I just had a little bit of a brainwave one day and thought, with all of the technology that's available these days, I could set up one-to-one virtual shopping trips right in the shop. So, I'm not putting anybody at risk. I'm in there by myself, and the customers are just calling up, just like a call like this, and I can take them through all the styles and anything they're looking for. So it was, for me, it was, it served many purposes. First of all,
Yeah.
it was from the point of view of sitting around at home doing nothing for how many months, and so I didn't like that option at all. And secondly was to keep that engagement with my customers, and for me personally to see people again, because we don't see many people these days, and you don't have a conversation only through
Yeah,
Zoom
and I'm
or,
sure
or
that was
Skype.
probably a big part of it for you. And and the thing is, you did it without knowing whether it would work out or not. And I think that's the key. And for people who are thinking about trying something different that they haven't done before, it may not work out. But it may work out,
Yeah,
but you won't know until you
exactly.
give it a go. So it's really just
That's
about, if you have an idea for something, just roll with it. And it might be a little bit wonky to start with, but you just keep showing up. And after a while, you'll either say, this is working, great, or this is not working, okay, but at least I tried.
Absolutely. And again, when I first started to think about it, I thought, gee, I wonder, will this work? Could this work? Is it possible? Will it be a disaster? And again, it's a bit like the other decisions I'd made. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I have absolutely nothing to lose. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, well, I had fun trying. I had fun
Mm.
making it reality, making it happen. So thankfully it
And I
has
think
been working, and I'm delighted with it so
Yeah,
far.
and it's the thing is that nothing has to be perfect when we start doing it, because there's no such thing as that anyway. And that's often
Yeah.
the reason why people put off trying something new, is that, oh, I don't know if it'll look all right, or will it look slick enough, or will it look perfect? Who cares? And especially now, I think
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody really cares, it's um and you
I
have to
fully
kind of
agree,
figure
Tracy. It's like you said there about taking yourself seriously. I think we all have a tendency to do that, and we just need to forget about it because nobody else is taking us seriously. We're our own
it.
worst enemies a lot of the time. We
Yeah.
just have to stop overthinking things, get on and do it.
Yeah, and have fun. And that's my sort of motto from
And
is have fun. And if I'm not having fun, then there's something missing. If I'm not having fun, it's because I'm taking myself too seriously. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah. And if fear wasn't in the way at all, because obviously there's still some degree of it, but say, somebody was to take all the fear away from you right now, what would you do? What other things would you like to do?
if, if you were to take the fear away right now, is that it?
Yeah. Or just fear in general, I know now is
Ah,
kind of, I guess, if we try and dream in a normal setting without sort of that, well, I can't at the moment, but forget about all that other stuff that's going on at the moment and just take fear out of the way. What other
yeah.
things would you like to do?
Well, I think, Tracy, in a kind of an ironic way, a little bit of fear is because I think it tempers situations. It means that there, and if you're able to feel that fear but not let it overcome you or overpower you, I think it's not necessarily a very negative thing. I think that you can take a positive from that too. I think it makes you. Instead of galloping straight into something, it makes you stop and think a little bit more about it.
Hmm.
Is a good thing, I think, and the Lord does give you, a pause, maybe a pause before you embark on a new situation or a new job or whatever it may be. So I think that having that little bit of fear there isn't necessarily a bad thing. And okay, so what you said there, what would I do?
Yeah.
I would pack a bag this evening, Trace. I would book a flight and go to Hawaii.
Okay. Yeah.
No holds barred.
No, and you see, yeah, and that's it is, you know, it's important, I think, that we allow ourselves to have those dreams because, you know, often people are so caught in their circumstances and in things that are going on that they forget to actually dream and looks outside of what other possibilities are there, because before they've even started thinking about it, they've talked themselves out of it because, well, that's never going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And I think we have to give ourselves permission as well to do things and think freely and make plans and explore opportunities for ourselves. I think we do hold ourselves back, you know, and it is all of those negative feelings and thoughts that hold us back from doing things that we're well capable of doing and that we will be quite successful doing if we just give ourselves the chance.
Yeah. Are there things that you would have done differently, you know, if kind of fear hadn't been in the way, or if sort of that lack of self-belief, or like, are there other things that you would have wished you had done? Or
the one thing that would come to mind is I probably would have embarked on my new business maybe a little bit sooner. But again, I suppose I was in a situation where I did like what I was doing. I enjoyed it. I didn't know that there was something else that I wanted to do. So maybe if I had been a bit less fearful around that time, or maybe a couple of years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I might have embarked on it sooner.
so it's slowed you down a little bit in the inevitable, doing something that you were going to do anyway.
Pardon, I didn't catch that. You froze
Yeah,
there,
we're
Tracy.
kind of breaking up a little bit. It just slowed you down in doing what you ended up doing.
Yeah, well, you know, I suppose I would feel what I am doing now was inevitable. It was something I had thought many, many times throughout my life, and I always just felt deep inside, for whatever reason, that it would become a reality. So I was lucky, I suppose. Everything stacked up at the time, things fell into place, and it worked for me. And I suppose I just didn't give in to any fear. I didn't allow any fear to stop me doing it. And I fully, you know, accepted, and I still do. It's still early days. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I will consider that if it doesn't work, I failed. I would consider that I failed if I never did this in the first place.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever does happen in the future, and I'm hoping that it will be a success and that it will continue to grow, but I don't beat myself up, because failing to me has been not in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great piece of advice. And I was going to ask you what you would say somebody who's thinking of embarking on a business, well, obviously not now, but maybe down the line, you know, for a piece of advice. And I think that's great. Failing is not trying in the first place. Where our Wi-Fi is not great, so I'm going to finish it up a little. We're kind of getting a bit glitchy there and sticking. But Caroline, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me, and I look forward to more fancy dresses when I get a life and get someplace to wear them to. I'm going into Lanidor and doing some shopping. I am going to put all your contact details into the comment box, so anybody who's interested in Caroline's virtual shopping trips, you'll know where to find. And it's a lovely Portuguese brand, and the clothes are really good quality. So I highly recommend them. And anybody else who's looking to get in contact with myself, if you want to have a chat about your own fears, or if you're interested in my new online program, which I just launched on Sunday, it is called Be You Bravely. So details for that are on my Facebook page. And thank you again, Caroline, for coming on my little show. And
thanks so much.
Hopefully we'll see each other in real life soon.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yes, I hope so. Thanks so much. Bye.